Hi, what's up, perps? So, looking at another bill here, this is H.R. 3740, introduced in the 117th Congress, June 4th. This is to provide for mandatory licensing and registration of handguns and for other purposes. Alright, so far from what I can see, I just checked on this bill before I came on. There haven't been anybody else that really signed on to this. So maybe this bill's not a huge worry, but guess what? It can always show up in one of these omnibus bills like they've done with all this other shit. So, yeah, we ain't out of the woods on it yet. So this is to provide for the mandatory licensing and registration of handguns and for other purposes, being enacted by the House of Representatives of the United States of America, Congress assembled. Act may be cited as Handgun Licensing and Registration Act of 2021. Let's come down a little bit here. Let's see. So this is Section 2, Federal Handgun Licensing and Registration System, to apply in any state that does not have a handgun licensing and registration system that meets certain requirements. So this is going to be a federal system, but if your state already has a system in place, you're good. Or if your state wants to put one in place, they will give you the money to do so. This adds in Section 923, which is at the end of Chapter 44 of the United States Code. So this whole section is new law that they are just making up out of thin air. A1, the Attorney General of the United States shall establish a federal system for the licensing and registration of all handguns owned, possessed, controlled in the United States. Sure, this couldn't lead to any problems. Under which a person shall not be eligible to receive such license if the person has not obtained 21 years of age. Because obviously, like Democrats are doing right now, if you're under 21 years of age, well, then you're a second-class citizen and you really don't have any rights. Unless they need you to vote for them, and then you can vote at 16. You can go into the military at 17. But you don't have the right to defend yourself. Alright, is not a citizen, national, or lawful permanent resident of the United States. What are they going to do with all the illegals they're letting in that are carrying handguns? Has not completed training in firearm safety. Now, this bill doesn't define their training. Other bills do. Which no doubt I would love to take the hours of firearms training that they're actually trying to mandate, but it's expensive. As part of the process for applying for such license, has not submitted to a background investigation, which is more than likely going to be like a medical background investigation, psychological, interviews with friends, family, exes. Yeah, that couldn't go wrong. The reason I say that is because it also says criminal history check of the person. So background investigation and criminal check. Has not submitted to fingerprints of the person and a recent photograph that clearly shows the face of the person as opposed to the ass, which in some cases would be a much better view. Is prohibited by federal law from possessing a firearm. No kidding. And such a license shall expire not more than 5 years after issuance. So every 5 years you're going to have to get another license. You are also going to have a license for every firearm that you have. And which shall include a method for easily retrieving information sufficient to identify each resident of a state to which this subsection applies who owns, possesses, or controls a handgun. when they're saying controls, if I loan someone a handgun, they now control that handgun. If they don't have a license, I've just committed a felony under this act. Now, that loan, really not defined in here. I could, in this bill, I could literally just hand it to him at a gun range because there's no exceptions. I've just committed a felony. Let's see. The handgun shall be unlawful for a person to own, possess, control a handgun in a state to which this subsection applies, unless the person is licensed to do so by the system established pursuant to paragraph 1 and has registered the handgun with the federal, state, or local law enforcement agency. Like, all of us only own one handgun. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5's in there. Yeah, there's a few. These people are freaking morons. Let's see. Let's see. License to do so by the system established pursuant. Has registered the handgun, yada yada. Subsection A shall not apply in a state if there is in effect a certification by the Attorney General of the United States, Merrick Garland, that the state has in effect a system for licensing and registration of handguns owned, possessed, or controlled in that state. Alright, let's see. Shall not apply if it meets requirements of subsection yada yada. Includes a method for easily retrieving information sufficient to identify each person of the state who owns, possesses, controls a handgun in the state and the handgun, and at a minimum imposes criminal penalties to any person who owns, possesses, or controls a handgun in a state and is not licensed by the state to possess a handgun, or has not registered the handgun with the federal, state, or local law enforcement agency, or transfers or receives a handgun ammunition, or receives handgun ammunition, unless the recipient is a licensed importer, licensed manufacturer, licensed dealer, or before the recipient has presented to the transfer a valid firearms purchaser identification card issued by the state to the recipient, a valid copy of a handgun purchasing permit issued by the state or recipient, or a valid permit to carry a handgun issued by the state to the recipient. A certification under Section B with respect to a state shall have no force or effect on or after the date the Attorney General finds, after opportunity for a hearing on the record, that the state does not have in effect the system described in subsection B. In other words, if a state says that they have this and the Attorney General says that they're not meeting the requirements, he can just nullify the whole system. And then I guess they'll fall under the federal system, and then everybody's just screwed. The Attorney General shall prescribe such regulations as may be necessary to carry out this section. So, the section of existing law that they actually do edit is 924, which is your penalties. So they come into 924, they add in paragraph 8 down here. Whoever knowingly violates sections 932A2 shall be fined under this title, imprisoned, or both. The court shall not suspend the sentence of imprisonment imposed under this paragraph. So if you were caught with a handgun without a license, or I loaned a handgun to somebody and they didn't have a license, we get fined and imprisoned. The court can't say, look, this was a no harm, no foul deal, we're going to suspend the sentence. They're not going to allow them to do that. They also don't define how long you will be going to prison. If we go up to the above up here, this has to do with the commission of a crime of violence, but that's, fined and imprisoned for 10 years. Yeah. Tell me these people about your rights again. They respect freedom of the Constitution. And of course, this would be completely invalidated, but it would have to go to court. And I've said it before in many live streams, Joe Biden and his administration have put more judges on the district and circuit courts in the first 2 years of his administration than Trump did in 4 years. They are literally piling on judges to these courts, and they're all leftist judges. So if you think you'd roll through just a circuit or a district court and this would get shot down, you're wrong. This would have to go all the way up to the Supremes while your ass is sitting in jail, losing your livelihood, losing your life, and destroying your family. Let's see. Clerical amendment down here, getting into 932, licensing and registration of handguns. Effective date. The amendment made by this section shall apply to conduct engaged in after a 2-year period that begins with the date of enactment of this act. Grants for the implementation of the programs to license and register handguns. Now get this one. The Attorney General is authorized to award grants to states, units of local government, and Indian tribes to comply with the requirements under the subsection 932.18 United States Code to implement the system described in subsection B of that subsection. Program authorized from the amounts appropriated to carry out this section, not later than 90 days after such amounts are appropriated, the Attorney General shall award grants on a competitive basis to eligible applicants whose applications are approved under the subsection C to assist such applicants in carrying out the activities described. Applicants to be eligible basically lays out those requirements. Let's see. The Attorney General may require, including whether the applicant will use grant to comply with requirements under subsection of 932 United States Code. Implemented the system described in subsection B of that section, including a description of the law that the applicant has enacted to require a license for any purchase of a handgun, including a description of any other exemptions to such law, description of specific activities, use of funds, basically to carry out activities, audits. The Attorney General has to do audits every 2 years. Then the Attorney General has to do a report to Congress underneath this. Now, this is the part I really wanted to hit at the end of this. Authorizations of appropriations. There's authorized to be appropriated such sums as may be necessary to carry out this act. That is a blank check. So there's no limit to the amount of money that they would throw at this. That is your tax dollars to strip you of your rights, to possibly throw you in prison and destroy your life. Hey, y'all have fun with it. Non-compliance, anybody? I wonder why they're going after ghost guns and stuff like that, because they want to implement shit like this. And this is probably the third handgun licensing act that I've covered. Third or fourth. So even though we get past one, there's always another one coming. And I guarantee you there's more coming right now. So you perps be cool. I'm out on this one. And I might just film an unboxing video here in a minute just to show off some goodies. So you guys be cool. And I am out.